cried the Sparrow.
You're listening to the Sailing into Oblivion podcast, where we sit down with everyday people who do extraordinary things. I'm your host, Jerome Rand. Hey, check 1, 2, 3. I think we are live. Welcome to the show, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to yet another podcast. I am back in action, ready to go. I just want to do kind of a quick update because we got a trip coming up, and it's kind of do or die, really. It's one of those trips that you sort of need to get someplace, and you need to get there for a purpose, and yeah, it's going to be kind of interesting depending on the weather. I'm just about to go and pick up my rental car and traverse this lovely, beautiful country of ours. My favorite part of that being the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia and Virginia, all the way down to North Carolina, where I'm going to meet up with old mighty Sparrow, and we are hopefully going to set sail in a matter of just a couple of days from now to then sail from Cape Fear around Cape Hatteras, due north up towards New York, and then final destination is Cape Cod. So that is the game plan for this next little voyage. And yeah, it's one of those things where I normally would say, well, it's going to be weather dependent. We're going to have to look at the passage, and we're going to have to wait for our window. But unfortunately, there really isn't much of a window to be had. It's either do this and go for it, get the boat up there, or sort of cancel some of the plans and leave the boat or haul it out somewhere further south. But we'll get into that. That's plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Got to have those things when you have these passages you got to make, and commitments you're also supposed to fulfill, and it's kind of one of those things. So that's kind of what we're going to get into is the overall, not only just this game plan, but kind of using it as an example for passage planning and getting out there and doing a trip kind of on the cuff with short notice. If you recall, if you listen to the show, you would have heard, months now, geez Louise, but the trip up to Cape Fear from Fort Pierce, that one, I literally had a one-day turnaround between a 16-day offshore trip aboard Montana, shout out to Mark, and then basically getting in, sleeping one night, and the next day provisioning. Thankfully, Mark was kind enough to clean the bottom of the boat and all that sort of stuff while I sort of sorted everything out, and then basically shoot straight off into the the ocean after that. Now that one was only about a 2.5 day trip, thanks to the record-setting pace that the Gulf Stream allowed. This trip encompasses a bit more distance, a little more heft. I think we're looking at about a 600, 700 miler. It's about 100. It'll be about 180 to 200 miles to get past Cape Hatteras and clear the Gulf Stream there. And then it's another 400 something miles to get all the way up to that little tiny flexing arm part of Massachusetts known as the Cape. And yeah, so a few challenges for sure. We're going to be looking at, obviously the biggest impediment right now is going to be Cape Hatteras. That is the danger zone, aka the graveyard of the Atlantic, and all that entails. Now, I've been around that quite a few times, and in good weather and bad, chances are that one's going to be riddled with thunderstorms. Right now, what our weather is looking like, so today is the 23rd of July. I'll be driving tonight, motel super late, and then driving all day tomorrow to arrive tomorrow on the boat, which will give me some time to provision and do all the stuff I need to do. We'll get into that in a hot second. But basically, I'd like to be able to take off as early as Friday afternoon, the 25th. And what we're showing is a nice little 13-knot southwesterly. The only question with that is what the inlet would be like getting into Cape Fear. But that's something that if you time it correctly, i.e. with the flow of the current going in or out, usually that's not going to be too bad. Yeah, mark my words, right? How many not too bads have turned into like very puckering situations, if you will. But the overview for the weather, though, from the 25th, we've got southwesterly turning into a westerly, going back southwesterly, all the way through Sunday the 25th, and even off into, it doesn't start getting wonky until midnight or 7 a.m.-ish on Monday the 28th. So that gives me good 48 hours of downwinding to get past Cape Hatteras before the northerly kicks in. And the northerly right now is showing to be very, very weak, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. And then we've got some northerlies, but we're already, 5 days out on the forecast, so obviously I'm not going to trust any of this or set it in stone. But I am going to glance at it more for like, I don't know, spotting a low pressure system or something big that might be on the horizon, because that's the only thing I kind of think about as far as once you get past about 5 days on the forecast. And it looks like, pretty typical July weather, southwesterlies. You get a little northerly push for a few days, and then it usually goes back. Now there's something way off, and this is talking August 5th. But again, that's so far out of the realm of believable forecasting that I don't even worry about that. Really focusing on those first 3 or 4 days. And it's kind of actually looking pretty decent to get my little booty around Cape Hatteras, because that, like I said, that's the big concern. Once you get around Cape Hatteras, then you're going due north. Let's take a look at what the old Gulf Stream has in store for us. Let's see. Right now, just FYI, I'm using the Windy app on my computer to tell me all this lovely information that I would never have before, and I will not have out there. No, I shouldn't say that. I will have this out there. I have to buy some more minutes for the old Iridium Go so that I can use Luck Grip. These are all the products that I use. Obviously, I am not sponsored, unfortunately, by any of these people, but it's worth mentioning that this is the sort of stuff I definitely trust and also am aware of the fact that this stuff is quite wrong quite often. So it's not gospel. But yeah, the Gulf Stream's looking like it goes from Hatteras, and if you want to get out of it, you pretty much shoot due north. And if you want to stay in it for a little while, you can just keep going to the northeast, and you can ride it, it looks like, for another 200 miles or so before then coming out of it. Almost perpendicular to like Delaware and the Chesapeake Bay. So that's encouraging, and it's flowing pretty darn fast. 3.4 knots, 4 knots. Wow, that is hawking. That would be really nice. That would cut the time down. Something fierce on this voyage, that's for sure. So all in all, glancing at the weather, and this is typically one of the first things I like to do, is really it's looking pretty good. It's looking like I can get around the most dangerous area of the voyage without too much trouble. And then I have some pretty good options for putting some distance between myself and the Gulf Stream, which again would be probably danger level 2 as far as this trip goes. Now, so weather looks good. Obviously, each day I'll take a look at it. I don't like to sit and mull over these weather patterns and these weather models. As pretty as they are, you can drive yourself crazy kind of thinking about the what ifs and all that sort of stuff. More than anything, I just want to keep an eye out and make sure there's nothing really big kind of blowing in that's a bit unexpected that might actually halt the voyage. So that's kind of how I like to treat the old weather forecasting when you're still a few days out. Now, Obviously, I'm going to be a little bit tired by the time I get there. A 2-day trip of, I don't know, 1,200 miles, 15. I don't know how far it is from northern Michigan down to North Carolina, but it's, 16 hours total, I think. So I'm going to try and break that up. We'll have to drive a bit tonight, but I'm more concerned about getting a good night's sleep in a decent little motel. I'd really like to get to the Big Walker Inn in Bland, Virginia, that old haunt from the AT days, which I have stayed at many a time. The classic Americana motel where you reverse into your parking spot right in front of your door and you just offload right into a very clean but very old school, old-timey little motel. Shout out to the staff and the ownership there because they've always been super cool. And it has one of the best views, for sure, of any motel I think I've ever stayed in. I'm not going to lie. You overlook the beautiful Appalachian Mountains, and you also get to see the contrast between the natural beauty of these ridge lines encompassed with, I believe it's Interstate 77, and it's a really interesting spot because it's kind of a valley dip, and so you do get the reminder of there's a lot of vehicles, not only from what you see, but also what you hear, the engine braking and all that sort of stuff. But for some reason, and I don't know if it's just me, but it brings me and fills me with a little bit of nostalgia. I think probably just from the old AT days. Plus, there is a little tiny gas station just down the hill. And whenever I used to see those on the AT, that was like the beacon of happiness because that meant ice cold drinks, that meant snacks and cakey goodness and all the tasty treats that the woods do not provide. So I love that little spot. And while we're on the shout out train, before we get into the next little step of this, there was I saw a new video on YouTube that my man Brandon did. He was on the podcast with Texas 200, and he just put out a repair video where he goes through a lot of the repair work, the fiberglassing, all that sort of stuff on his trusty little vessel, and it's pretty good. So definitely want to check that one out. Just go to his YouTube channel, which I, off the top of my head, cannot remember exactly what it is. So let's go to YouTube. This is one of the first times I've actually had my computer screen sitting in front of me. I don't want it to be a distraction, so that's kind of tricky, but it can be a wealth of knowledge. Yes, Restore the Thunder Road. That's the one. Yeah, Brandon's freaking cool, man. Oh, he's got a great picture there. That's awesome. So he just put out the video about how to fix that and everything. Lightning strike repairs, chain plate damage. It's a good one. So check that one out. Okay, so we got our weather, we got our game plan, we got our drive time. I have to drop the car off on the 25th. Oh, shoot, I just keep closing that one. Drop the car off on the 25th at noon, or at least by noon, and then I'm off and running. Now, things to do on the boat. This is going to, I was there about a month ago, I guess. So I guess we're going to have to just see. It's like I don't want to say it's a petri dish, but it's hot. It's clammy down there, and the mold is just, it's loving life. It's absolutely loving living aboard Sparrow. So there's going to be a bit of work to be done. So the idea, and this is where I find that I have to really, really try hard to be very realistic about time usage and what I'm going to be able to do. Like I said, ideally drop the car off by noon on Friday, and then maybe just before sunset, making my escape, depending on the tides and the currents and stuff. If I could take off Friday evening, the weather is good, and that gives me a little bit of a head start. Now, the only problem is, though, that doesn't leave me a huge amount of time for not only all the jobs that might need to be done, while also getting a bit of rest before I set off solo out into the ocean to deal with all that entails. If you head off into these thunderstorms and stuff like that, Cape Hatteras, it can be challenging to get through that stuff. And when you're in those challenging very changeable conditions like that, you don't have the ability to pop down below for a couple of hours of sleep. Sometimes you don't have the ability to pop below at all, and you just got to stay up there and fight the fight. So I got to consider that. And if you don't consider that, that's when you find yourself pulling back into Charleston after a day and a half from leaving Bellhaven, and you're so shaken up and freaked out that, you're thinking about selling the boat or something. That's where I was not that long ago, beginning of the year, folks, if you remember, back in January. So being realistic is definitely top priority, and it's something I have to really, I'm not a spring chicken anymore, people. I'm an old man. I'm an old salty sailor, and I need my rest. So ideally, I think what I'm going to do is right now, you heard it here first, I'm going to leave with the tide on the 26th. That's going to give me a solid night's rest on Sparrow before I actually take off. That also will alleviate a bit of the pressure of having everything prepped. Now, when I say everything, that's essentially, I'm glad now looking back that when I pulled in and had that time aboard Sparrow, I actually was pretty diligent with things like the oil change, the fuel filter change. I got, 15, 20 gallons of fuel on board. Cleaned the vessel as best as I could, organized things, did some repairs here and there, and pretty much just tried to prep the vessel so that she was turnkey and ready to go. Now, I know I still have to go through all my checks, no matter how much I think I did and noted in the logbook and all that sort of stuff. I still am going to have quite a decent amount of a checklist to go through. I don't have... because I've done it so many times, and I know I talk to a lot of the people that I work with about having a physical list, a checklist, if you will, that you can just check things off before you go. And I think that is a great, great way to ensure that you do not forget the little things that can, really screw things up. I don't know. I have such a list ingrained so deeply into my psyche that, after doing so many of these little trips and so many of the big trips, it really is, for something like this one, I'm going to sit down with my pad, with my pen, and I'm going to mark down and roll out exactly what I need to do. But some of the topics, full engine checks, all the lube, running the engine, making sure everything works well, and is all up to date and fully fueled, because we might hit some calm patches, and I got to be able to steam my way through those. Normally, obviously, I would just drift out there on the ocean, but I don't have quite the amount of time I need for that one. And so engine really is going to be a big factor to make sure everything's working well there. And then, it's the living conditions. I really like to be able to sleep on clean, fresh, mold-free sheets while I'm underway. And so, and I know I keep saying mold. It's just one of those things where the boat I know where it's coming from, and it's going to get alleviated, but I haven't been in a boatyard in quite some time to be able to rip out what I need to rip out and replace. But that time is nearing. I will tell you, Night Marine is looking better and better every second. I can't wait to get up there to Maine after this Cape Cod stint to do some work and do some hang time with Murph and Cy and Heath and Celia and all the great characters. And don't want to forget Daly and little Wiley. But so essentially it's just that big list and getting that done. Got to go provision, obviously, get everything sorted out for the boat so that I am well fed on the voyage. Lots of snacks, coffee, all that sort of stuff. Some crisp BBLs, no doubt. And on that note, let me take a sip of this delicious McDonald's brand coffee. Oh, my gosh. That's so good, because that's got regular half and half in it, too. I'll tell you what, breakfast blend, I get the grounds, and wow. I am thinking, though, because I was told recently by someone, I don't know who it was, that the best thing to do is get your own beans and grind your own beans and then make the coffee that way. And, I don't know. I fluctuate. I like to have all stages, but I've never had that stage. I've never gone that far. And shout out to Justin because he introduced me to that little hand grinder. I think I'm going to need something a little more industrial than that, but it definitely was the freshest coffee I've ever had. So thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. I think that was espresso, actually. So yeah, we're gonna delve into a little extra. We're gonna try and make this the coffee cruise in a way. We're gonna really be dialing. Excuse me. We're gonna be really dialing that one in. But right now, yeah, it's McDonald's brand, and it's pretty good. I like it. It's going to be fueling my ride across America. But I'm not. It's not one of those things where I have to get it at McDonald's. I've got a big tub of it, and I take my French press, and I take my. What else do I take? What's that? Oh yeah, the Jet Boil, which is probably the most efficient water boiler I've ever seen in my life. Shout out to those people that build that thing. And yeah, it's not an uncommon sight to see old J-Rome at one of those picnic benches at rest stops along the great routes of America, boiling up some water for a nice fresh cup of coffee. Lifeblood, if you will. Gosh, that's good. Okay, so, and I'm looking at my watch, unfortunately, because I do need to jet out of here to go get this car. But I do want to get this little update out. Other than that, it's pretty much, like I said, one of the big priorities is getting that rest. Just being able to, tonight, get off that road by, say, 10 p.m., get a good night's sleep. You're always going to be fatigued and tired, whether it's a sailing trip or a long-haul driving trip. So making sure you can get those good 8 hours in or so, or 5 hours, whatever you can, I suppose, before you actually venture out. And honestly, I think one of the things, too, is to not fool yourself into thinking like, oh, I'll be fine. I didn't get much sleep last night, but I'll sleep when I'm out there. That's a no-go, especially this route, because one of the things to consider, because I'm only going to be, I might find myself 200 miles offshore at the maximum. And that's the stretch between Cape Hatteras and Cape Cod. If we get some northerlies, which I'm sure we will, we'll probably tack way out into the Atlantic and then tack back in towards like New York and all that. So there's going to be traffic. I'm going to be on the continental shelf, which means not only shipping traffic between places like New York and Boston and the Chesapeake, but also fishing, scalloping, all the accoutrement that goes with quote unquote coastal sailing. So I'm gonna have to keep an eye out for that. It's not going to be the easiest thing, but again, I got the old AIS backing me up. I got the ability to sleep for an hour, check on things, kind of get a good feel for how things are going and what's around me. Ideally, this is a trip I would love to do with another person, just to make it a little bit easier for sleeping and stuff. But I'm also looking forward to the solo aspect of it and just how it's kind of nice to get back into that zone of it's all you and it's you in the ocean in the boat, and that's pretty much all you're dealing with. Dancing with the wind. If I may do my Daniel Day-Lewis, There Will Be Blood impression, side takes sailor mode. I am a sailor man. Riding the wind and waves is what I do and what I have done for years. That boat has taken me well across many oceans, and I hope that boat will do the same for me that I have done for it all of these years. There we go. Not too bad. I wish I had a more bassy sort of voice, but I'd like to actually write a pretty good script for that one. At least like a 1-minute monologue about ocean sailing via Daniel Day-Lewis. That would be pretty cool. All right. So that being said, I think we're pretty well on our way. Any things and, I don't know, impediments, worries that I have about this trip? Really, obviously I would like to avoid too much thunderstorm action at Hatteras because that gets a little bit unnerving. But, I always tend to try and remember the fact that being struck by lightning is super duper rare, and there's really nothing you can do about it. So, the backup plan for all that sort of stuff is the fact that I have a compass and a sextant and the charts, and so I don't need electricity on the boat if I don't have it, and I can continue my voyage. The other worry, I suppose, that I have is that we're just going to get north winds. 4 days for the last half of the voyage, and I'm going to be beating to weather to claw my way up to Cape Cod. I mean, in the back of my head, one of the big worries, obviously, is that I don't make it up there in time for the first presentation. And I've only ever had that happen once, where I was sailing down to Cape Charleston from, where was I? I was leaving end of October from Rockland, Maine, and headed down to Charleston, and I was going to go do a speaking engagement up in Maryland, and unfortunately, I was hit by a 3-day gale and had to hove to because it was a southwesterly, and essentially that extended my voyage by quite a few days, and so we missed that one, but we were able to reschedule. Hopefully that does not happen, and we're able to plug our way through and get up there in a timely fashion to take care of these things. So should be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to it. Unfortunately, we weren't able to put together any public venues on this one. August is just a hard month. Everybody's out there trying to enjoy the summer. Nobody wants to get cooped up in some sort of speaking thing, which is understandable, although they are going to be super fun, and I'm really looking forward to doing these. But we do have coming up in October on the 2nd, we're going to be speaking in Indianapolis, Indiana, which is pretty cool. Got a lot of family there, a lot of friends, and we're selling tickets for that one. I can put a link in the description for that, and you can go online and purchase tickets, and you can come to that venue. We're going to have a little, welcome beverage, do the presentation. We're going to have a little dessert mingling, and I'll be selling and signing books and stuff after that. But it should be a lot of fun. My mom's side of the family all come from Indianapolis, and so in some ways it's been something that should happen a long time ago to go there and tell the story. But I'm really, really looking forward to it. And if you're in the area, come check it out. It should be a lot of fun. We're going to be talking about the trip around the world. We might delve in a little bit to the disaster voyage, or at least, show some of the cool footage from that one for sure. But it should be a lot of fun. So again, October 2nd, Indianapolis. We'll be doing that. Link in the description for that. And I do want to talk about the Rust Belt because, after having participated in the Chicago to Mackinac race, it really is, it's interesting. The Great Lakes, sailing on the Great Lakes is very hit or miss when it comes to weather systems and winds and all that sort of stuff. And the idea of sailing from Chicago all the way to Buffalo through all those Great Lakes and around the great state of Michigan and all that sort of stuff. And I'm talking about the Rust Belt 950 here. Daunting, to say the least. I can really only imagine how long that would actually take having done it, because I just don't think you get the sweet weather pattern very often where you can just do this sail without being flat becalmed and waiting around for hours and hours. And I don't know. It's pretty incredible. The more I think about it now, the more I'm like, wow, that's actually a really daunting challenge to undertake. And hopefully we are able to get this thing kicked off and have our first inaugural race next year, 2026. It'd be really, really interesting. It's something that it's not just a weekend. It's not just a couple of days. This is going to be a endurance test for both physical and mental. It really is. It's a challenge to do these sort of trips, the non-ocean, the big lakes, all that sort of stuff. So we'll keep you updated on everything there. I'm going to throw the link in the description for the website for the Rust Belt 950. I'm just going to basically be plugging this one and doing it every time we do a podcast, just to keep trying to get the word out that there's a new challenge in town. And if you like freshwater sailing and got your boat up in that area, man, this might be right up your alley. And plus, I do think the really interesting aspect of this is that it's not just for yachts and 30-footers and stuff like that or above. We've also got the inshore class, which is really, really interesting. Think about Hobie 16 or one of those kayaks that has a little sail on it. I mean, the fun that you could have trying to traverse that entire system of lakes on a small boat like that, camping out, cracking brews, that would be pretty cool. I am very, very much excited about that. That whole idea just sounds like an epic adventure. So who knows? We shall see. So the time has come. I've got to shut this one down. Time to hit the road. I don't know, as always, what kind of car I'm actually going to receive. I like, excuse me, I like doing the whoa. Oh, I feel like I swallowed a bug. I like doing the podcast from the vehicle, like the olden days, but unfortunately that was in a very specific car that was very, very quiet, and I have yet to be in a car that quiet. And whenever I rent from Enterprise, which they have always taken very good care of me, I have never, I don't think, received the car that I booked. So, the worst case scenario was one time having to drive from Florida all the way up to Michigan, booked an economy car so that I'd get the best gas mileage, and received a gigantic Suburban. And that was a bit brutal when it came to the paying at the pump. I'll tell you that much. But hopefully we'll get something that's decent. And if it's quiet enough, man, I'll be doing some podcasting from the road. And we'll definitely do an update once I get back to Sparrow and all that sort of stuff. Still, sans, Starlink, or any fancy stuff like that on the boat. As much as I am starting to lean. The more I think about being able to update the podcast and the podcast alone out there, definitely sounds very appealing. But it's all the other stuff that comes along with that. The whole internet. I don't want to bring the world out there with me. I just want to bring a little portion of it. But unfortunately, it's darn near impossible to resist the urge of the calling, screen, if you will. But other than that, cool. Time to hit the road, and thank you all so much for listening. We will just keep going on the updates and everything. And without the listener support, I really do. I do not think for 1 second that I would still be doing this podcast after essentially 5 years. It's coming up on 5 years this October, and it's been awesome. It's been a life-changing sort of thing that I've jumped into and somehow been able to maintain. And it's because people write in and people like to listen, and I get I don't know. It seems like it's a great avenue to help people out. And, I really like it. So it's a little bit of self-therapy for me as well, to just be able to ramble on. And I do appreciate it when people write in and say, dude, just keep on rambling. Because sometimes you get down and out. I go high and low, depression and all that sort of stuff, like most people. And there's times where you feel like you're just screaming into the void and nobody's listening, but then everybody kind of lets me know they are. So I do appreciate that fully. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time.